I think we're ready to rock and roll. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Divine Law in Action, form number 17. First time from the studio going live here on YouTube. We're also going to be going live on TikTok. I'm going to say right now, please like, subscribe, comment, send this message out to your family, to your friends, if you want them to understand more about the jurisdiction of God's law, divine law, stepping out from underneath the man-made legal system, right, that has been corrupted and is enslaving the children of God on the regular in today's world. This is what we're dealing with here. This is what we're going to be talking about today. So today I am doing something a little new and different. Not only technology-wise, but on this teaching. I have no pre-prepared notes. I am trusting in the Spirit of the living God to channel through me to give the message to his children the way that he wants it shared, not some preconceived way that I feel it ought to be designed, right? And why am I doing this? One of the reasons is because what we're going to be talking about today is giving your testimony to the world. Right? This is what we're called to do as a believer, as a follower in Yeshua, as a follower of God. We are to be able to give our testimony at all times. And as people are transitioning from the man-made system and stepping into their full power as a child of God, one of the most critical aspects you can possibly build in yourself is the ability to allow God to take control of your tongue and walk in faith and give your testimony to anyone who challenges you, no matter what it is that you're up to, right? So I got just a couple of opening questions I want to start with here today, all right? What I want to share is that I was a licensed professional. If you've never heard me talk before, you're going to hear a little bit about my story, right? I was trained to help, I was licensed to help and trained to keep you small. What do I mean by that? Well, my perspective now, after having let go of my identity as a licensed professional, is that those that are licensed were trained in man-made law. We're trained to exclude God's law. We're trained to operate under the system of laws that man created and stacked on top of God's laws. And so when that's your training, you're actually keeping people from being able to get to the source, true law, divine law. God's laws are higher than man's laws. And yet the professionals that so many of us go to when we feel like we need assistance with something keeps us from getting access to the thing that's really going to help you, right? So I'm going to talk about some of the licenses that do that. I'll start with my own. When I was a licensed lawyer, I'm no longer that. My identity is no longer wrapped up in that license, and so much so that I let it go. But I'm not just talking about this. This is divine law in action. So I'm walking these things. I'm practicing these things. And I know for a lot of licensed professionals, if they start to hear what I'm talking about, it's like nonsense to the programmed mind. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. You have to abide or bow down to the man-made laws. But what I'm here to share is that God's laws operate at a higher level of frequency, a higher consciousness. The source of everything that was created in the world was created by God. God made law. The Bible is a law book. It is the law book. And it's the law of love. It's how you communicate, how you operate in a community, how you operate within your family, how you would conduct what we call business. God never called it a business. God's laws are about service. They're about how you assist people in your village, in your family, in your community, in your neighborhoods, right? Or if you have a special area of expertise that God has blessed you with, and then you went to the man-made system to get licensed to do it, you were limited to be able to go all the way to that highest level of excellence, which would be operating on behalf of God, right? So, if, for instance, you're a doctor, I got to assume that many licensed doctors are now starting to wake up to the idea that covering the face when you are dealing with airborne illnesses is not the best way to eliminate. Well, okay, let me scratch that. That's not coming out right. That with this thing that happened in our world few years ago, right? The scandemic, the pandemic. There was a protocols that the licensed professionals had to give to the people who would come into their doors because of their license. And those licensed protocols were not in the best service for the healing of the individuals that were coming in the door. So I'm going to assume if you're hearing this message, somehow it came into your awareness that you're in alignment with that. If you're not in alignment with that, you probably aren't going to like anything else I have to say. So you might want to click off now, because what I'm talking about are God's laws operate at a higher frequency, a different frequency than what the licensed professional can tell you, right? So prayer, breath work, natural plants are better. All three of those are better for you than prescriptions, poisons, right? So, they fight cancer with poison. Radiation is a form of poison, right? Now, doctors can't say that. They get all like, I even get a little cringe in me when I say that, because I know some of these social media platforms want to stop this message from getting out because it's not the way of the world's mindset. It's not the way that the licensed professionals teach. And if you go against the licensed professional, if you go against the protocols of the man-made system, the world wants to shut you down, right? And this is the fear program. That's what keeps the licensed professional on that track. They keep elevating them as the standard in the world. And they're not the standard in the world. I'm telling people, having been a licensed professional, having held several professional licenses. And I wasn't just, your average licensed professional. I mean, I never had any complaints against my licenses. I never had any formal, I got sued, but it had nothing to do with my license. It had to do with the personal claim. I mean, So what I'm trying to share is that I'm not coming at this from not having walked the path. I've been in the world of holding licenses for over 40, 50 years. No. Let me take it back. I had my law license for 33 years. So I guess that's the first license I got. Then I got a real estate broker's license, mortgage broker's license. I had a general contractor's license, right? And my whole goal was to assist entrepreneurs in transitioning from what I called having money in their checking account and putting it into their savings account by helping them buy a building instead of lease space, right? This was my stick. This was my gimmick when I got my real estate license after being a real estate attorney for a few years. I created homeowners associations as an attorney, right? And so having practiced all that for all those years, one day I started to realize there's this passage in the Bible in Romans that says, do not be conformed to the ways of the world. And then I started to question, well, what exactly does that mean? Well, the ways of the world is the licensed protocols. The ways of the world are the licensed academia, right? It's the public school systems. It's the institutions that are pushing this same message into the children and then all the way through for as long as they can. Once you become a professional, CPAs, attorneys, doctors, they all have these continuing education hours that they have to maintain in order to keep their license. So they keep programming you into their thinking, right? This is not a popular message what I'm sharing right now because the licensed professionals and agencies and the government think it's nonsense and they want to shut it down. And so it's been difficult getting this message out to the world. It's taken me many years before I felt confident enough, before I could shake off that old identity, before I'm no longer fearful of that, because God's calling people in today's world to step up and start talking the truth more boldly. If you can't see what's going on in the world today with all the nonsense and all the craziness, the program, the politicians, the news, the school systems, the media, that's what's keeping it all alive, right? They're not bringing God's law into the picture. They're not bringing the law of love into play. And this is why that program is staying alive. This is what's keeping people numb. And when they start to hear what I'm talking about, rather than go to the scriptures, because there's this program that they're corrupted, that they don't, man has twisted that, right? How funny is this? You think man can actually twist God's word so that God can't get his message to his believers? That's silliness. Of course, God's going to make sure that those that are ready to hear know who he is and what he's all about. And yet we trust the man-made law. And the man-made law is what's screwing the world up, right? This is what's creating jurisdictional boundaries and things that man fight over, and things that are keeping fear running, things that are keeping us numb and dumb in relationship to how to steward God's assets and resources, right? So let me spend a moment talking about the CPA license, right? The certified public, you catch the term there? Accountant. Certified public accountant. So this means that that individual's license has a rule set that it needs to follow. And that rule set has a bunch of definitions in it. And those definitions, when you go see that professional and you adopt his definitions and you sign an agreement with him, he teaches you the first thing you need to do is disclose and register all and everything that you own as an asset with your government. Now, if you do that, I'm in 100% agreement, meaning if you go hire a CPA and ask them to assist you with your assets, I believe you should follow that protocol, because that's the agreement you made. And if you enter into that agreement and then you don't follow it, you're going to find yourself in trouble with the man-made jurisdiction. What I encourage people to do is stop going to the licensed professional, because they're programming you. They're programming you in fear, and they're hooking you into their system. This is what I did when I was an attorney. If you came to me and you asked me to prepare a contract for you, by my training, I would tell you that the contract needs to claim a jurisdiction that you're operating under. Never, ever once was it ever thought in my mind, was it ever taught in law school, or would it ever be permitted to say, well, I'm operating under God's jurisdiction? No, that's not permitted. You have to name a country, a state, a city, a local municipality. There has to be some jurisdiction under man-made law that an attorney uses for the authority under which they're writing an agreement between the parties. Under divine law, that's not so. Under God's laws, the children of God are allowed to make free agreements that don't require a blessing, approval, or registration or permission from the government. This is what Yeshua taught his followers, right? Now, he also taught his followers, or those that would come to him and question him, that if you are using Caesar's laws, if you're playing in that jurisdiction, then you better pay attention to Caesar's laws, or you're going to get yourself in trouble. So that's why I'm saying, if you go to your CPA, then you want to not probably pay attention to what I'm teaching and what I'm telling you to do, because you're playing in a different jurisdiction. If you mix up jurisdictions, you're going to get yourself in trouble, and it could be quite serious trouble. One way to say it is you can get yourself in trouble with God because you're not listening to God's laws over man-made laws, and you're going to get yourself in trouble with the man-made laws because you're not fully stepping out of their jurisdiction. And if you're in their jurisdiction, they have authority over you. And actually, God's laws say, listen to your local authority, right? Or honor your local authority, right? We're not rebels. God didn't ask us to be rebels. He didn't ask us to take down the old system. He just said, when you know who you are, when you know that you're connected to my Father, then you operate in a different way. You're an ambassador of another kingdom, passing through the kingdom of the dark forces, right? Man-made law. We represent another kingdom as the child of God. Our birthright is a child of God. However, most of us were born into sin, being the false identity, our family origin. We were born in a nation, and on your birth certificate, your parents allowed them to put down that you're a citizen of a country. Under God's law, that's the same thing as saying, I'm a slave to Pharaoh, right? So these are the distinctions that your licensed professional can't tell you about or won't tell you about. And my goal is, my hope is that I can assist some of them to wake up so that there are more licensed professionals that start telling the truth about who you are. But I'm not counting on that. I'm speaking directly to those who are children of God and they know they're children of God. And I'm giving you wisdom and discernment to say, stop seeking confirmation of what I'm teaching now from a licensed professional, because they can't give it to you according to their license. And I can't tell you how many calls I've been in and conversations I've had with people who start to see what I'm talking about and start to see the teachings. And then they're like, okay, they'll schedule a follow-up call, and they show up on a call and they have their licensed professional with them. And I'm like, this isn't going to go well, because the licensed professional, what does he do or she do? They are representing their client by the nature of their license. And I'm talking about either a CPA or an attorney in this case, right? By the nature of their license, they are representing their client, and it's adversarial. The license is adversarial, meaning anybody who opposes their client is the opponent. So they're going to be using their schemes under man-made law to the best benefit of their client, but their client is a citizen of Pharaoh, citizen of the state. So they have a whole set of laws that they need to advise their client to follow, right? And so when your licensed professional shows up and they meet somebody like me, they're going to most of the time, this is what happens when I run into those conversations. They're going to act like they're on board, because I'm going to show them the man-made laws that tell them that what we're doing is lawful. For instance, if you haven't heard of this before and you're listening to this message, there is under the Constitution, there is, in the First Amendment, it says that Congress can make no law either approving or disapproving religion. Okay, so if you then use and create a 501c3 not-for-profit organization and call it a church, right? You can do all kinds of 501c3s. It doesn't have to be a church, but let's say you just use that code to create a church. You made your church a statutory organization. That means you asked the permission of the government to bring God's message to the people. And by the way, man-made churches don't need to even be about God. That's another crazy idea all in and of itself, right? You can create your own religion under a 501c3, and the state will say, well, you don't have to pay taxes, but you do need to report all of your things, and we're going to limit your speech. We're going to limit what you can talk about. You can't get involved in politics, right? There's all these rules and laws around that so-called church. Under God's law, God doesn't require or God would not want anybody asking the government for permission to do God's business. We don't bow down to Pharaoh. Jesus didn't bow down to Pharaoh. Jesus respected and honored the authority of the law, of the man-made law. They're all appointed by God, by the way, but he didn't ask them for permission for his ministry to go do the things that he was doing. He was healing in God's name, right? He was serving his community, feeding the poor and the hungry and helping the widows in God's name, not through some organization that got permission from the government, right? So that's one example. And what I mean by the laws back up, God made provision for the child of God to be able to do the work of God without getting permission from the government. And that's what we talk about. That's what we're all about under divine law, right? And the law, man-made law, has provisions in it that say they can't interfere with private agreements. This is how you can operate a private member association that is not a statutory organization. Okay, this is how you can operate a trust organization that is not a statutory trust that you need to get from your licensed professional, your attorneys. Now, if you don't know what you're doing and you're taking that trust organization or you're taking a private member association and you're going back into the jurisdiction of Babylon, if you're entering into commerce with those organizations and you don't know what you're doing, I can guarantee you that Babylon is going to assume jurisdiction over you. They're going to enforce jurisdiction over you. So this is where it becomes a little bit more sensitive for the child of God, where you need to know what you're doing. You need to have some awareness and consciousness. You need to study God's laws. That's what divine law is all about, right? It's not about agreements. It's about knowing who you are as a child of God, and then about how you exercise God's laws, how you can give your testimony, how you can give witness to the idea that you're actually serving the highest law of the land. God's law is higher than the man-made law, right? The challenge with a lot of people who are going down this road is there's a lot of teachers out there that are snake oil salesmen, and they're teaching techniques and tactics and documents as the way for people to escape from Babylon's man-made laws. But they're not bringing God into the picture. They're not identifying with Jesus Christ as the way, the teacher, the master advocate, by the way. It's all in the Bible. It's all in the scriptures. Jesus is our advocate who represents, who presents us as holy and blameless to the Father. So if that's not a part of your equation, then you're not receiving God's protection. And if you're not receiving God's protection, then you can expect that the Babylonian jurisdiction is going to get into your business. And these are things that it's taken me, even being on this journey for a long time and teaching these things for a long time, it's becoming more and more clear as the days go on and as the time goes on. When I first got started, when I was still holding on to my law license and I was, say, riding the fence, and I was starting to operate in what I call, at the time I was calling it the private jurisdiction. I don't really refer to it that way anymore, because under God's laws, it's not private. It's God's law, and that's what it is. It's God's law. So there's the man-made jurisdiction, and then there's God's jurisdiction. And as we step into God's jurisdiction, there's a lot of programming in our mind that can complicate the situation or have us be stuck between the worlds. This is the journey that I like to assist people on navigating. If you know that you're a child of God, and you know that the man-made system is not your friend, but it's actually enslaving us and keeping us from being able to follow God's laws, or it doesn't keep us from following God's laws, but it's a program that has us think that we can't follow God's laws completely, right? Then those are the people that I'm sending this message out to. I'm sending this message out to people who are ready to step out of the man-made program and wash your brain with God's law, and you want to go deeper, you want to understand it better, and you want to understand how that will assist you in setting yourself free from the man-made program. These are the people that we are serving and stewarding through Prosperous Legacy Advisors. So Prosperous Legacy Advisors, if you've never heard this message before, that's a private member association. And what we do is we talk about God's laws. We assist people in writing covenant agreements that reestablish the jurisdiction that they're operating under. If you've got contracts with the government, we talk about how you can step into a new world, operate in a new way. And you can go to www.discernment, divinelaw.com. You can sign up. You can be a member of Prosperous Legacy Advisors. You can get my book, Divine Law, Govern Under God, Rebuild Your Business on a Kingdom Foundation, right? We're teaching people how to reorganize your life, how to reorganize the way that you are operating in the world so that you are truly an ambassador representing God's kingdom, a heavenly kingdom, here on earth now, right? And then we also have a masterclass. You can sign up for that masterclass. These are all at www.divinelaw.com. We've got a YouTube channel. If you're watching this on another platform, you can sign up for that at Divine Law Media. And you can get involved in our circle, in our community. And you can like and subscribe, and you'll get downloads. Every week, we're putting out more content for the child of God who is ready to step out of the jurisdiction of the man-made system and start operating in a new way, right? This is what we're doing. We are assisting people who are done with the system. We're not rebelling. We're not fighting. We're not trying to take it down. That system's been around since the beginning of time. We're told this in Genesis in the Bible, right? God's law says that. God says there's two sets of laws. There's his law and there's man-made law. And so we're operating in the new kingdom, or the old kingdom, the only we're operating in God's kingdom. That's where we're at. And if this is encouraging to your spirit, if you're wanting to go deeper on this, then we've got channels for you to do that, right? So that's why you go to www.divinelaw.com and sign up for the resources that are available there, and we'll continue to walk this journey together, right? So, all right, and if you've got questions, like some comments, interact with me on YouTube. This is my first time, by the way. I'm trying to organize and run. I see some questions here. Let me see if I can get some. If give me a second here. I'm going to read and see if I can respond to some of these comments. I see. This sounds. I can't. My eyes aren't working so well that I can read this. Can you give me some?
I just heard a story. Well, put his name. I can't remember. I started talking about things that they should.
Okay, I got to get a better system put together so I can. I don't have my glasses with me and I can't quite read.
That's not a question.
The chat. Okay, so it doesn't sound like we got any questions in there now, but I'm inviting people. If you've got questions, I can't guarantee I'm going to answer them all, but I wouldn't mind interacting with you, having you post some things. And I'm going to continue to riff a little bit here on this idea of a child of God who's seeing the things that I'm seeing. And so I just recall that the name of
saying you're live now.
Okay, I think I'm coming back online live now after a power glitch, and so forgive me for if you lost me. I kept talking because I wasn't sure if I was still alive or not, and so I think we're back with you. So I'm just going to keep going, and I'm presencing. I don't know where I got cut off. So what's coming through to me though, the title on this talk today, right, was that I was trained. I was trained to keep people stuck in the system, right? Now, you don't know that. The licensed professional doesn't know that that's what their training is all about. They're actually, the system, the man-made system lifts up the professional, right? And it's because they give us a license so that we are assured that we're going to continue to train people in the ways of the world. We're going to continue to train people in the program that the citizens are when you're under the license